It's time to talk professional wrestling on Kayfabe Commentary. My name is Erik Rupp, and I will be your host, and we are going to be talking about NWA Powerrr Episode 18. And this episode started out with Eddie Kingston and his pals, the Bouncers, taking on the Dawsons, led by Pope. Now, for a match that was all about size, strength, and power, this one had a lot of nuance to it and a lot of subtext. And this is what takes the NWA up to the next level. You had Eddie Kingston, who really wants to get his hands on Pope, because Pope disrespected Kingston's friend Homicide. Homicide injured, Pope trying to convince Kingston that he didn't need Homicide, and Kingston taking that very seriously and very personally. So he wants Pope, and of course, Pope so far doesn't seem to want any part of Eddie Kingston. Instead, he has the Dawsons come out, kind of take his place in the ring. Well, Eddie Kingston comes out with the Bouncers to represent him more or less, and you have these two giant teams going at it. Well, at the same time, Kingston really wants a piece of Pope, and he wants to get him in the ring, and that's something that I think all of us want to see. Eddie Kingston versus Pope one-on-one in the ring, that's got to happen. We want to see which one of them is better, and you know that this is a grudge match. Kingston wants him for personal reasons, and that could make for a great match. Now, the funny thing is, who won this match almost doesn't matter. I mean, the Bouncers won. They beat the Dawsons. This was a tough match, really entertaining, fun to watch. But who won almost doesn't matter, because this feud between Kingston and Pope, it's long from over. There's a lot yet to go on. The one thing that did matter when it comes to the match between the Bouncers and the Dawsons is I'm really honestly surprised that the ring didn't collapse under those guys. They were just, I mean, you're talking about four huge guys. It's just amazing that ring didn't collapse. Now, from there, we got a great match between Tim Storm and Tom Latimer of Strictly Business. Now, this was an even power-based battle. This was not a battle of subtlety. This was not about wrestling holds. This was not about high-flying moves. This was power versus power. And I'll tell you what, Tim Storm went in there very confident, almost cocky, and it was just, you had two extremely tough guys and a very physical match. And I'd say that Tim Storm got the better of Latimer overall in the match. Now, it was interesting to see these guys try and one-up each other in kind of trying to out-tough each other and knock each other down, and they were punching each other, and neither one of them was giving ground. Neither one of them was really effectively hurting the other for the longest time. But then Tim Storm started to get some good moves, and then of course Latimer got his shots in, and it was just a great match, starting to look like maybe Tim Storm would win. And that's when Latimer hit Storm with a flying DDT to get the win. And I'll tell you something, that was a great match. And it proved, even in a loss, that Tim Storm still got it. He's going up against a guy 20 years younger than him, and yet he's not just holding his own, he's dominating much of that match. So Tim Storm still got a good future in front of him. Tom Latimer, he proved that he is one of the monsters of the NWA. He's one of the toughest of the tough guys. And unless you're in that league when it comes to strength and size, or you just got superior wrestling skills, you do not want to get into the ring with Tom Latimer. Now, I don't know how many times I'm going to say this, and it seems like I say something similar every other week, but Trevor Murdoch is just awesome. He was on fire on episode 18 of Powerrr. He came out, did an interview with David Marquez, and you gotta love David Marquez, but Trevor Murdoch was just absolutely on fire. He wants a rematch with Aaron Stevens, and he made it clear that Aaron Stevens is making a mockery of pro wrestling. He wants that national title. He wants a shot at it, and he wants Aaron Stevens to stop running. And he is just really, really mad that Stevens keeps running from his competition. He wants a title shot with Stevens, and you know what? He's right. Trevor Murdoch deserves a rematch with Aaron Stevens, because Aaron Stevens used a short time limit to keep his belt. Otherwise, Trevor Murdoch would be your national champion today. And I'll tell you what, the other thing, too, is Murdoch's not real thrilled with the question mark, and the question mark came out, interrupted the interview, sang the Mongrovian national anthem, and then I'm assuming what he did was challenge Murdoch to a match. He challenged him to karate. And I'm assuming that means he wants a match with him in the ring. And that's fine, as long as it leads to a championship match between Trevor Murdoch and Aaron Stevens, because Murdoch deserves that rematch. Now let's talk about the latest addition to the NWA's announcing team. They have brought in Sean Mooney. Now, many of you may remember Sean Mooney from the early 90s when he worked for the WWF. He did interviews, he did updates, he was great. He really did a good job with the WWF. Now you look at him and what he's doing with the NWA, and it's a very similar thing, and it fits in perfectly. He is a great asset to the NWA, and he's doing a great job with these updates during Powerrr. Now, during his latest update, he reported that Marty Scurll made a counteroffer to Nick Aldis. Rather than refunding everybody's tickets, what he's going to do is pay $500,000 to Nick if he loses. Now, like I said last week, I really think that this is a huge tactical mistake on the part of Nick Aldis. I think it's a tactical blunder, a tactical error. It is something that could cost him that title. He is giving Marty Scurll additional incentive to want to win that match. Because not only if he loses does he not win that title that he so desperately wants, but now he's going to have to pay $500,000 to Nick. Now, I don't care how good his contract is with Ring of Honor. That's a lot of money. And so I'll tell you something. Nick Aldis, I think, may have just screwed himself out of that title. Now, I could be wrong. Nick may end up winning the match anyway, but if he loses, I'm telling you right now that the root of that loss comes down to this decision. He wants to extract a pound of flesh from Marty Scurll. He's mad at Marty Scurll for going after his title, and he's going about getting at him in the wrong way, and I really think this could end up costing him that title. After Sean Mooney's report, there was still a lot of wrestling to be seen on NWA Powerrr Episode 18. The next matchup was Matt Cross challenging Ricky Starks for that TV title. It, of course, had that 6-minute, 5-second time limit. And, this was really interesting. Their match at Hard Times was just constant motion, a lot of stuff going on, high energy, high octane, and this match wasn't. This match was more about grappling and holds and even some power moves, more than the aerial stuff that we saw the first time around, more than the gymnastic and acrobatic stuff that we saw out of both Matt Cross and Ricky Starks to a lesser degree. This was a classic old school wrestling match, and in this one, Matt Cross just ran out of time. He had a shot there at the end, but the time limit ran out, and Ricky Starks retained his title. These two wrestlers are just evenly matched, and you kind of get the sense that if they had 10 matches, that neither one of them would win more than 6. When it comes to the women's division in the NWA, is the faction led by Melina starting to crack. We saw that Thunder Rosa is definitely getting irritated with the idea that Melina is going after her title, a title that Thunder Rosa worked so hard to obtain, and Melina is now trying to set it up where she gets that title. She wants a title shot at that. So clearly there's some friction there between Thunder Rosa and Melina. But now we're starting to see maybe something's going on with Marty Bell. Marty Bell is adamant that Melina is her friend and Melina's looking out for her, and that Allison Kay was never really her friend and didn't care about her. But Allison Kay came out to confront Marty Bell and let her know that she is still her friend. And she's letting her know that she supports Marty and that she wants to be friends going forward. But she can't make Marty be her friend. But she's also letting her know that Melina is brainwashing her and that she has filled her head with lies. So it's going to be interesting to see, will Marty Bell face reality? And the reality is, Melina is not looking out for her. We have seen that week after week. All Melina has had for Marty Bell is criticism. She's had harsh things to say about Melina, but never a nice thing to say. She's not getting that balance. It's all negative. There's no positives there. So the question is, will Melina alienate both Thunder Rosa and Marty Bell and leave herself without a faction? Because Melina wants that title shot, and to get it, she had to fight Tasha Steelz on NWA Powerrr. Tasha Steelz is a really good wrestler. She's fantastic, and this was a good, competitive, back-and-forth match. I'll tell you what, Melina looked good. She didn't look like somebody who hasn't done a lot of wrestling in the last few years. She looked like somebody who's been wrestling the whole time. She's sharp. She's strong. She's got her coordination. There's no ring rust there. And ultimately, Melina ended up winning that match, and she wants that title shot next week against Thunder Rosa. Now, we don't know if the NWA is going to sanction this match. We know Melina thinks it's sanctioned, but we don't know if the NWA has gone along with that. They said that she needed to fight more singles matches to qualify for a title shot. Well, now she's beaten a top wrestler in Tasha Steelz. Is she going to get that match? Is it going to happen next week? Will it happen a couple weeks from now? We don't know. But we do know that Melina wants that title shot, and she seems to be willing to alienate those people who have been supporting her. And that brings us to the main event of this episode of Powerrr, a tag team match between the team of the Real World's champion Nick Aldis and Royce Isaacs versus the legendary Rock and Roll Express. Now, to make things more interesting, Sal Rinauro and May Valentine were sitting together in the stands watching the match. Of course, Royce Isaacs was distracted by that, and he was looking at Valentine and Rinauro out there, and Morton and Gibson definitely took advantage of that. In fact, Robert Gibson immediately rolled Royce Isaacs up and almost got the pin. He got a 2 count right off the bat because Isaacs was not paying attention to the match. And what's interesting about this match, too, was that the Rock and Roll Express really dominated the first third of the match. They dominated it. Nick Aldis and Royce Isaacs, mostly Royce Isaacs, just couldn't get things going at the start of this match. They dominated Royce Isaacs to begin. Aldis got in. He didn't do much better. Isaacs came back in, and it wasn't until Royce Isaacs got a cheap shot on Ricky Morton outside the ring that the match changed into the favor of Aldis and Isaacs. This match went back and forth. It was a really good match, but ultimately Royce Isaacs ended up using the ropes for leverage to get the pin and the win, and Strictly Business came out of there as the winners. And like I was saying, this was a really good match. You know, it's shocking how good the Rock and Roll Express are at their age. They have no right, no business being that good, but they are. They're not as good as they were 30 years ago. Nobody's going to say they are. But what they've lost in speed and agility, they've more than made up for in ring smarts and strategy. They know how to handle certain situations. They've been in thousands of matches over the last 30 years, and that knowledge and experience has made them smarter wrestlers, and they almost got a win in this match here against Nick Aldis and Royce Isaacs.